Hi everyone, in this video of Accelerated Chess Dragon we're going to be looking at a game played between Mikhail Botvinnik and Jose Capablanca. This was played in the 1938 Avro tournament in the Netherlands, and without further ado, let's look at this game. Botvinnik starts off by playing the move d4, and we have knight s6 by Capablanca. c4 and now e6, knight c3 and bishop to b4. So we have the Nimzo Indian, and after e3, the Rubinstein variation. d5, a3, and here Capablanca makes a questionable decision. He takes on c3. Now, I don't really like this option of bishop c3 check, because after bc3, Botvinnik is going to undouble his pawns with c takes d5. So it gives into question, why did Capablanca play bishop c3 if the pawns were just going to be undoubled? It would only just mean that Capablanca gave up the bishop pair for no reason whatsoever. But Capablanca plays c5. He gains space, and he strikes in the center. C takes d5, and now e takes d5. So bishop d3 castles, and now knight to e2. Botvinnik develops the knight this way because he wants to play the move f3 and e4. And you cannot do it when the knight is on f3, because then obviously you cannot play f3 as Botvinnik. So he goes knight e2, and even if bishop g4 is played, it'll only help him after f3 and e4. So b6 is played here by Capablanca, wanting to fianchetto the bishop, and now Botvinnik castles. Capablanca now plays bishop to a6, and what he's doing is he's trying to trade his relatively bad bishop for Botvinnik's bishop on the d3 square. Although I'm not really sure if that was the best idea, considering that now Capablanca's bishop has a good scope, and it didn't really need to trade itself for that bishop on d3, because this bishop can now get activated quite easily to somewhere like g4, h5, and then even g6 to kind of try to exchange for this bishop on d3. So bishop a6 is a bit of a question to me as well. Bishop takes a6, knight takes a6, and now bishop b2. Now, Botvinnik seemingly makes a terrible decision by playing bishop to b2 and putting his bishop on a very bad square. Why is this a bad square? Well, because all of Botvinnik's pawns are on dark squares. And it doesn't really seem like it's a good idea to place them all on dark squares when this dark squared bishop has no way of getting out whatsoever. However, you'll find out what Botvinnik's idea really was. Queen d7. So what is this queen d7 move trying to do? Develop the queen and connect the rooks. And Botvinnik here plays a4. And he wants to play ideas like a5. He also tries to get a grip towards the b5 square. And now rook fe8 is played by Capablanca. Queen d3. And now Capablanca plays c4. And this is trying to at least close the position down and make Botvinnik's bishop even worse. But Botvinnik really wanted to develop his bishop out to this a3, f8 diagonal, hence the reason why a4 was played here. Queen c2, and now Capablanca plays a ridiculous process where he just tries to win a pawn. However, that pawn is very off-sided compared to where Capablanca really needs to be keeping his pieces. So e4 is played here by Botvinnik, gaining space, and now Botvinnik has achieved his goal, played e4. And even if Capablanca does capture this a4 pawn, it was on the wrong side of the board. His queen needed to be on the king side and try to guard against these threats. But when you capture the pawn on a4, the queen is off-sided. And after e5, knight d7, and queen f2, we see that Botvinnik is now trying to build up an attack. Capablanca prevents this with g6, but after f4, he temporarily tries to delay it with f5. However, Botvinnik just plays e takes f6 en passant, and now after knight takes f6, f5. So nothing really changed. Capablanca cannot prevent f5 anymore, and now he's starting to get himself into hot water. That pawn on a4 was just a distraction. It was not for the main fight of the game. So rook takes e1, rook takes e1, and now rook to e8. And Botvinnik could take the rook on e8, but to improve the position of his own rook, he plays rook e6. Now, of course, if trades occur, it would only favor Botvinnik because well, that would just improve the position of his pawn, and it would really bring it very close to queening. So a trade of rooks occurs, and now king to g7, trying to defend the knight, of course. And now queen to f4. And queen f4 has ideas of infiltrating via the 7th rank, and specifically the c7 square, but it also has ideas of going knight f5 check. And to illustrate it, we'll say that the move a6 was played. If a6 is played, then there is ideas like knight f5. And if you bring the king to the back rank, then you're very exposed to moves like queen e5 attacking the knight, and also queen b8 check later on. And you cannot capture the knight with g takes f5 because there's simply queen to g5 check. And that's basically it for Capablanca. And it was a similar idea that Botvinnik actually employed in the game. After queen f6 check, Capablanca simply has nothing. And now after e7, king goes anywhere, let's say to c8, you just queen and that's it. So a6, and after knight f5 check, this is already winning for Botvinnik. So Capablanca played queen e8. Now, of course, if knight f5 check is played, this is a humongous blunder, because after gf5, queen g5 check, queen g6 can be played. And would you look at that? You save the knight. So queen e5 instead. And what is the idea of queen e5? Well, you're trying to advance the pawn, but you're also trying to get ideas like bishop a3 in to support the pawn even more. So queen e7. And here is the critical position of the game. Botvinnik is down one pawn, and maybe if he doesn't do anything at all, then Capablanca can actually win. He can convert his extra pawn, and with a pass pawn later on, let's say this pawn just advancing down the board, and this pawn accompanying it, Botvinnik's position just goes to waste. But Botvinnik has a very clever move here that many engines nowadays still do not find very easily. So, what do you think Botvinnik played here that just wins the game on the spot? Okay, so Botvinnik played the move bishop a3. And at first it doesn't seem like it's doing anything, but once you start to ponder on what Botvinnik was trying to do, you'll understand why bishop a3 was played. Bishop a3 is simply a deflection that tries to move the queen away from the e7 square, and mainly from the guard of the f6 knight. Now, obviously you cannot go queen to d8 because you were just allowed the pawn to advance, and that is not a good thing for Capablanca. So Capablanca took the bishop on a3. And unfortunately, you don't have time to play the move e7, because then just queen a4 and you guard the e8 square. That would just be a piece sacrifice for no reason. So knight h5 check. This was the idea that Botvinnik had. Now, of course, if you move the king, you lose the knight on f6. And you can't capture the knight on h5 with your own knight as Capablanca, because the knight's pinned. So what can you play? You can play g takes h5. But after this move is played, queen g5 check. There's a check towards the king, and it doesn't matter where the king goes, f8 or h8. Because if the king goes to h8, then there's check, king g8, and now e7. No way to really stop this pawn from queening. If you go queen a4, then queen f8 is mate. Basically, there's no way for Capablanca to do anything. Botvinnik can hide from all the checks eventually, and then Capablanca's extra piece is useless. So, after queen g5 check, king f8. And now, Botvinnik captures the knight on f6. And this is where Capablanca is forced to go to g8. Because going to e8 will just lead to checkmate after check, and then checkmate. So you must go to g8. But now, e7, and that same idea, it's just transposed. The point is that Capablanca simply has no way of defending, because Botvinnik is simply going to hide his king from Capablanca's queen. And that's basically it. Botvinnik will eventually get the queen f8 check move in, and Capablanca has nothing. His extra piece really doesn't mean anything. Queen c1 check. King f2, queen c2 check, king g3, queen d3 check. Capablanca tries to keep on checking the king, even though it doesn't make any difference. Check on e4, and here king takes h5 was played. Check on e2, and now king to h4 was played. Check on e4, king g4 was played. Check on e1, king to h5 was played. And after this final 41st move, with king to h5, Jose Raul Capablanca resigned the game. There's simply no way to either stop queen f8 check, which would just win the game on the spot, or to stop that pawn from queening. Really, the best move would have to be queen takes e7 or something like h6. But even after that, there's absolutely nothing that Capablanca can do. Capablanca resigned the game. So I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you have any suggestions or feedback for me, please let me know in the comments section, and stay tuned for more chess.